We're on a mission from God.
Wendy?
So I got that going for me.
Darling?
Looks like I picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Light of my life.
We enjoy your films.
I am a human being.
I thought they smelled bad on the outside.
Welcome to Vintage Video, where we'll be reviewing every major film release of the 1980s in real time. And by real time, I mean on the 40th anniversary of their release in the United States. I'm Patrick O'Reilly.
I'm Jesse Bayless.
And I'm Richard Wells.
And today marks the 40th anniversary of the release of Just Tell Me What You Want on January 18th of 1980. It was written by J. Presson Allen, directed by Sidney Lumet, and released by Warner Brothers. Richard, would you care to summarize the plot for us?
Sure. Just Tell Me What You Want is about a pioneering young woman who is, I guess the term would be sugar daughter? If you have a sugar daddy, are you a sugar daughter?
Sugar baby?
Sugar baby?
Is that what the candy's called?
She's been in a relationship with this man since she was a teenager. She's basically indebted all of her career, but she wants something more out of life. And when she tries to branch out on her own, he tries to get a little vengeful, trying to crush her attempts to get out from underneath him. Only to, I mean, are we going to spoilers? Only to come back to him.
Yeah,
because I guess
that's
what she wants.
We should preface this with, we are going to spoil the film.
Yeah.
In our review of it.
Well, you're supposed to say that before you spoil the film.
I don't think anyone cares about this movie.
Oh.
All right, the review has begun.
All right.
It's a bizarre movie. The first time we watched it, I remember just remarking on how not funny it was.
Yeah. It's like it didn't know what genre it was going to be, if it was a comedy or a drama.
Right.
And it rides the line so hard that it never leans either way.
Yeah, well, and it's funny because it starts off with she does the whole line of, this is the story of how I got married, and it's...
Yeah, they play it like it's a standard romantic comedy.
Right, they think it's a romantic comedy, you think it's a romantic comedy, and then, in somewhere around the middle of the film, she does get married. She goes off and marries this, this playwright. And you're like, oh, okay, that's how you got married. Oh, it's so cute. This nice guy, you got away from this, this horrible man that was doing these terrible things to you, and you got away, but and now you're happy.
They dip into that stuff, and it gets real dark.
Yeah,
but it's also weird because it has like a cold open of like a scene from the middle of the movie that's very slapsticky to introduce you to the story.
And then because with my second viewing of this, I was like, this film is really disturbingly dark.
I feel like Sidney Lumet thought it was a dark comedy.
Yeah, it was this because we open up with an abortion.
Yeah, that's like the first plot point.
It's post-abortion.
Yeah, I want to cover the making of before we get too far in. So in 1975, J. Presson Allen, the screenwriter, published her first book, which is Just Tell Me What You Want, and it was quickly optioned by Warner Brothers for $500,000. So keep these numbers in your head. $500,000, $500,000 so far. That's where we're at. Mike Nichols was briefly attached to produce and direct, but Sidney Lumet was later hired. He cast Alan King, who he'd worked with a couple times before, but this is King's first leading role. Possibly ever, but at least in a Lumet movie. I didn't check to see if he had other lead roles. Apparently Sybil Shepherd was told she had an audition for Ally McGraw's part, and when she found Sidney Lumet on the Universal lot, he told her that she was mistaken and that it was already cast, so she fired her agent.
Oops.
Oh, jeez.
So that's awkward. Ally McGraw was
So
paid,
she really wanted that, huh?
Apparently.
I think she, figured out later that was probably for the best.
No, I don't think it was her loss. Ally McGraw, though, for this film, was paid $650,000 plus a share of the profits, which couldn't have been... It couldn't have been anything because the movie made $2 million before Warner Brothers pulled it out of theaters after 2 weeks.
But $650,000 is a pretty good amount of money, right?
It is. And when you put it on top of the $500,000 they paid for the script, and they probably paid Alan King more because it's 1980.
Right.
So that's like almost the whole $2 million blown already. You didn't even get into the production costs. It's literally just paying the lead actors. And Myrna Loy, you have to pay her a lot.
Well, and Sidney Lumet wasn't like a first-time director.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
several films under his belt.
Yeah, And Myrna Loy was 75 at the time. This is her final film. And she plays the role of Max's secretary. Max is one of the two lead characters of the film. The sugar daddy to the sugar baby previously discussed. This is also apparently Michael Gross's first film in a blink and you'll miss it appearance as Lothar in one dinner scene.
Lothar.
Yeah.
I don't even know. Like I watched the movie twice now, and I still didn't catch him in there.
Lothar is someone they were considering to do the screenwriting adaptation of Peter Weller's play into a movie.
Oh, okay.
But he was unwilling to drop his price.
Yeah, he was too expensive. And so they were like, he was like, I could just do it myself. And Christopher Reeves was offered a role in the movie and passed on it. I'm assuming that's RoboCop.
Yeah, that would
be the role that would fit him the best. Principal photography for the film began on January 29th of 1979. The production designer Tony Walton based Max's home on Zsa Zsa Gabor's home.
Okay.
It was just like 99% mirrors.
Perfect for filming.
Yeah, great. That's really good for
everything
filming.
like all the doors are like very carefully opened at weird angles so that you can't see any crew. I'm assuming it was like skeleton crew anyway, but
yeah, they had no money left over to pay.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what the budget was. His office was based on John Calley, who was at the time the head of Warner Brothers office. And the screening room, which was featured in the film, was copied from the basement screening room of Buddy Rogers, who was an actor and the second husband of Mary Pickford. But to get back into Sidney Lumet, like you were saying, that he's obviously not a first-time director, and this was actually like, his first big one is probably 12 Angry Men.
Yeah.
But this came as like the fifth in a series of like really celebrated films, but then this one was like the clunker that nobody remembers, kind of. I mean, if you go in order on his IMDb page, you have Serpico, and then he did a Murder on the Orient Express with Albert Finney as Poirot, which I would love to see. I haven't seen that one.
Is that the one that won Best Picture?
Did a Murder on the Orient Express win Best Picture?
I don't know why I thought it. Hold on, won one Oscar. Hang on. Oh, sorry, Best Actress, Ingrid Bergman. Sorry.
I was going to say, I didn't think that was in my memory list of Best Picture winners. But I would love to see that. I mean, I like Kenneth Branagh as Poirot, but Albert Finney would be really fun, especially a young Albert Finney.
Yeah. But
then after that, he did Dog Day Afternoon, Network, The Wiz, and then this. It's like one of these things is not like the other. Like you remember all these other movies.
Yeah, but I also feel like The Wiz kind of stands out there. Like
that's true.
Like I don't think that if you were going through directors at the time, you'd be like, oh, who'd be great at The Wiz?
Yeah.
Let's get Sidney Lumet in here.
Yeah.
Any African American director.
Right. There must have been at least one, right?
Yeah. Especially after Network. That's a weird choice, I agree. Although there is a lot of like fun imagery in Network that I can see, like all the stained glass stuff and the weirdly shaped offices in the Network building.
Were there any musicals on the list up to that point?
For Sidney Lumet?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I mean, like yeah.
The only other one that I had on here to mention was Failsafe, which is I know of it because and they talk about it in Stanley Kubrick's autobiography. It came out the same year as Dr. Strangelove, and the story was so similar to Red Alert, which is what Dr. Strangelove was adapted from, that they sued them, and I think they actually won. But both movies ended up coming out in 1964 with very similar storylines. But no, I don't think Lumet has any other musicals to his credit, at least not at this point in his career.
Yeah.
The writer, J. Presson Allen, who, as we said before, had written the book that this was adapted from, was predominantly a screenplay writer before. So even before she had written this book, she had written screenplays for movies. She wrote Marnie for Hitchcock. She wrote Cabaret for Bob Fosse. She wrote Funny Lady with the Barbra Streisand movie. And then she also is somehow an uncredited screenwriter on the 1976 version of Star is Born, which also had Streisand. So I don't know if that means like...
Well, she was a script doctor for a long time.
Yeah. So I don't know if that means they brought her in after the fact to fix it, or if Streisand and Christopherson just completely abandoned what she had written.
Oh, no. I mean...
I could see it working either way.
She probably has a lot of uncredited writing stuff, because the Wikipedia was saying that she was a script doctor.
Like Princess Leia.
Yeah, and she said she preferred that because, she would come in and the producers would just be desperate for a script. And she's like, I didn't care about credit. Like, I just wanted to come in, make this thing better. They
also get paid way better.
Yeah, they get paid way
regular
better.
Screenwriters.
And at the same time, there's not the drama of like, oh, now you're on the hook to write this script and everybody's hounding you and they're, it's script by committee and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, no, you're just coming at the end and everyone's desperate for you to just make it better. And they're just, here's your money, go do it.
Yeah. And I haven't seen Marnie, but all those movies are pretty well celebrated movies.
Right.
Getting into the cast a little bit, Alan King, who plays Max Herschel, the media mogul of the centerpiece of the story. I mostly know him from Friars Club roasts. When my brother and I used to stay up really late and watch In Living Color, they would play all these commercials where you could buy the older Friars Club roasts when it was like all the Rat Pack and everything.
Oh,
and
God, I remember those.
It was always Alan King officiating. So that's what I always think of him first. But prior to this movie, he doesn't really have a lot of big film credits. After this, he has like Bonfire of the Vanities, Casino, and I think he was the bad guy in Rush Hour 2, or like he's definitely on the bad guy's team. I don't know if he's the main bad guy. He seems like the money behind the villains or something.
Well, I remember him mostly from Cat's Eye.
I don't know that one.
You don't know Cat's Eye?
You haven't seen that movie?
Maybe I have. No, I'm
we're judging
forgetting
you now.
it. What is it?
Now we're judging you. That's the
Stephen King,
It's like a
short stories with a
anthology.
cat.
No,
Yeah.
I haven't seen this one.
Oh.
There's a great the James Woods segment is where he's trying to quit. He's trying to quit smoking. And
Is that post 1980 Cat's Eye?
Yeah, it's 85.
Okay, good. We'll get to it.
But James Woods joins this really aggressive anti-smoking organization where they follow you around and whatnot, and Alan King's like the head
Like
of
slap the cigarettes out of your hand?
No, they kidnap your wife and torture her.
Oh my god. Okay, so that's a little more extreme than I was thinking. That's like The Game.
Yes, but for quitting smoking.
Yeah. And then obviously the other lead is Ally McGraw as Bones Burton.
They never go into that. Like they
Why
never.
her nickname is Bones?
Yeah, why is her
Yeah.
nickname Bones? Like, does she have another name that is like Bones?
Yeah, I'm not sure on that.
Was she an archaeologist?
Yes.
Like, where-
Prior to this, she was an
prior to
archaeologist.
being a 16-year-old sugar baby,
Right.
taken off the street by this mogul.
Yeah, at the beginning, they talk about Bones says that Myrna Loy's character was there to like usher these women into this program where she would like fix their teeth and get them educated and make them like suitable mistresses for Max, and they called them the Herschel Scholars. But Ally McGraw is like the #1 Herschel Scholar right now. She's the first mistress, and
her big selling point was that she had a perfect bite.
right.
That she never had to have.
Yeah, she didn't have to have
That's
anything.
your defining moment?
But it's funny too because at the beginning you see Myrna Loy on the phone and she's like, "No, he's not going to pay $15,000. He only kept the last one for a year, so we're not doing this anymore." But Ally McGraw, prior to this, it's basically just Love Story, which was a full decade before this. She did a lot of other movies, but nothing that like I feel like people mention a lot. There was also The Getaway, which if you don't know her life story, which I learned from the movie The Kid Stays in the Picture, the documentary on Robert Evans. She was married to Robert Evans, who was the head of Paramount Pictures at the time. And then they made the movie The Getaway, and she was opposite Steve McQueen and left Robert Evans for Steve McQueen.
I have a movie on my server that I haven't watched with her yet called Convoy with Chris Christopherson. It's a Sam
Okay.
Peckinpah film.
Oh, that sounds good then.
Yeah, I have not watched it. It's 78. But that's the only like I'm looking at her credits. Like, oh, Convoy. I know of that movie.
Yeah. And then we said before, Max's secretary is Myrna Loy playing Stella Liberti, who apparently was an uncredited chorus singer in The Jazz Singer in 1927.
She had a lot of uncredited roles and a lot of roles as slave girl going through her credits.
But that's crazy that this is her her last movie was in 1980, and she was in the first like sync sound picture in 1927.
Right.
She was also obviously in 6 Thin Man movies. She was the Nora to William Powell's Nick in the adaptation of Dashiell Hammett's hard-boiled detective novels. She was also the female lead in Best Years of Our Lives, which did win Best Picture. in 46, or wanted in 47, was released in 46. I'm not sure. She was also in Mr. Blandings Builds His Dream House, which I feel like I've watched recently. That's the one with Cary Grant where he like quits his life and starts building a house.
I don't think I watched that with you.
No? Okay. And she was also the mother in the original Cheaper by the Dozen, which I mostly remember the book. I've never seen the original Cheaper by the Dozen movie.
Oh, you haven't? I
No.
actually really like that movie.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
And I've only seen the recent one.
No,
There you
no,
go.
the original one's really good. You
I
should
would watch
it.
one with Myrna Loy and Steve Martin. And then getting into some of the supporting cast, we have Keenan Wynn. Who's
Yes.
just amazing. He was also in one of the Thin Man movies. He was in Song of the Thin Man, which I think is like the 5th or 6th installment, because Song of has to come late in the series. Like, who does Song of for a sequel? It's usually like
Song of Ice and Fire, you know, that's a pretty...
That's not a sequel.
Yeah.
Well, it will be. Apparently, Keenan Wynn was an uncredited bartender in Touch of Evil somewhere.
Okay. I mean, he's unmistakable with his voice.
Right.
He and Ed Wynn both have that voice.
His father.
That's those voices. They're vastly different voices, but they're so identifiable.
But Keenan's also changes a lot from film to film.
Yeah.
Like, he's doing a bizarre accent throughout this entire movie. But yeah, apparently, like, he was the one who talked his dad into pursuing acting. And of course, if you're not familiar, Ed Wynn went on to do the voice of like the Mad Hatter and like a bunch of Disney cartoon characters, and
His Uncle Albert and Mary Poppins.
right,
Oh, yeah.
floating
that's
up
great.
in the
But Keenan
the
was also
roof.
in a lot of Disney stuff. He was like in the Love Bug and
right.
one of my father's favorite films is Point Blank. Not to be confused with Grosse Point Blank, but Point Blank, which was what the movie, the recent adaptation was with Mel Gibson, was Payback.
Okay.
That's basically the remake of that film.
Well, I like Payback, so I'll have to check out Point Blank. He was also in a Twilight Zone episode. The title of his segment was called A World of His Own, which is the one where the writer can like will things into being by describing them.
Into the tape recorder.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, which is funny because it kind of got remade as that Paul Dano movie Ruby Sparks.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of the same story. And then my favorite role from Keenan Wynn was as Colonel Bat Guano in Doctor Strangelove.
Now look, Colonel Bat Guano, if that really is your name.
And then it looks like he did like some crazy sci-fi stuff in like the mid to late 70s with Orca and Laser Blast.
Oh man, I don't remember him in Orca. God.
You remember orcas.
Oh, I only
The last time I tried to put it on, you were like, "Do not put this on with the kids away."
Yeah, yeah.
Because the very first scene is a dramatic murdering of a whale or something.
Yeah, it's this pregnant whale is hauled out of the ocean, and it's in such trauma and terror that it gives premature birth to a whale fetus that falls onto the deck of this ship.
Oh, my God.
And it's the most horrifying thing I've ever seen.
It wasn't even scripted. This is
don't-
just this is all in one shot. This happens. But he's also in Piranha, which is magnificent, with Joe Dante directing. And I guess he has a part in Parts of Clonus Horror. I didn't realize that. He's got to be a scientist or something in that.
What movie?
It's called Parts of Clonus Horror. And
You said it again. I still don't know what you're saying. A clonus?
it's a terrible
Yeah, a
title, so it's
clonus
really...
is
Yes,
how you say
Parts a Clonus Horror.
What does that mean?
What does it mean? That's a good question.
Parts is parts.
Apparently, E.E. Cummings wrote it.
But here's the thing. I'm familiar with that movie, firstly, because of the Mystery Science Theater episode about it. But secondly, because they filed suit against Michael Bay when the movie The Island came out, because it's essentially the same story. Two people that were born into an organ farm in the distant future escape and start encountering people in the real world and realize that the facility they came from isn't like the last vestige of human life. It's actually just a farm where eventually they get killed and their organs are sold to people who look
I'd
like
watch
them
that.
on the outside.
That sounds good.
I honestly think Parts of Clonus Horror is better than The Island.
I never saw The Island either, but that's.
But,
I think I'll start with this one.
Yeah, it's funny.
And watch the MST3K version.
Yes, absolutely.
for
I just
sure.
remember there's like something where they find like a can of like Milwaukee beer or something like that. and they're like trying to pronounce the word or something. And
Milwaukee.
Which is Algonquin for the good land.
The character that Keenan's playing is Seymour Berger, who is like a business rival of Max's.
Right. Yeah. They are the Macy's and Gimbals.
But it also seems like he's kind of on his way out, and he's letting his son take over the company. But his son is running a movie studio for Max, and he's running it into the ground.
It's his grandson, though, right?
Oh, you're right. It's a
His grandson.
Yeah, because they have this
His
weird
pansy grandson.
His pansy grandson.
My marshal does not know another lady that has a pansy grandson.
No reason to bring this plot point up whatsoever.
Well, Max brings it up a lot too.
But there's no point to it. Like what's
Other than the 80s interpretation of a pansy as someone who's just like can't produce anything.
who's a failure.
Yeah.
I must tell you, this boy is a great disappointment to me. No great grandchildren. The end of the line.
Well, but I think that was also intentional as part of the setup that Max was being led into.
Yeah.
That this guy is worthless and like they're screwing him over.
Yeah, because when that big twist happens, I don't get into that, but he looks at Mikey with pride. He says, everybody wants my Mikey.
Yeah.
Because they made the deal with the other studio. So I feel like that delivery of that line was to play to Max in order to increase this setup that he's going to be playing into.
Yeah,
so he's more convinced that he's going to win in this deal.
Yeah.
So part of Max Herschel's like conglomeration of companies, he has like you pointed out, there's like a mining operation. There's like it's all sorts of, they have their fingers in all sorts of crazy pies. But part of it is like a television station and a movie studio, and he keeps talking about how the movie studio is not going to make any money, but Bones wants to take it over.
Right.
And as much as like it seems like he's handed Bones everything, she does point out early in the film that he did give her like the job and he gave her like her position, but she won 4 Emmys.
Right. Those
on
4
her
Emmys
own.
were hers.
Max financed my TV company, but I won the 4 Emmys on my own.
Yeah, it was her own due
But
diligence.
they're it's an Emmy. So.
Yeah, it's an Emmy. You can buy those too. I'm sure he bought them for her. But yeah, so what is the name of the studio? Independent Films?
Well, I have it here. International Pictures.
International? Mm-hmm. That's the name of the studio?
That's the name of the studio that Max owns.
Oh,
but
for
then
some reason I thought it was Independent Pictures.
Cosmos is the rival studio?
Right, which both seem like versions of Universal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he runs his studio, but he wants to get rid of it and just keep the prints and like the IP,
Right, because he
basically.
thinks that's the only thing that's worth any money.
Yeah,
the library.
because everything else is operating at a loss. He's running Fox Studios like 6 months ago, and he's like, let's just sell the whole thing, and I'll keep the titles that I'm allowed to like sell home video, and this guy who he let stay in charge of the studio, turns out sold everything out from under him.
Well, he sold the library
Right.
from under him.
Yeah. That's the grandson of the Seymour Berger character, Mike Berger, who's played by Tony Roberts, who is in Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, the first one, the good one.
The good one.
I haven't seen the second one, so it might not be bad.
It's fair.
But the first one's better, I assume. But it is, and he plays
It's Walter Matthau. I mean, you can't beat
and he's
that.
saving the universe.
He's
that
awesome.
That was part of the double feature of Walter Matthau Saves the Universe. That
the
Patton Oswalt put on.
Charlie Varick was the other one.
It was Pelham and Charlie Varick,
Yeah,
which
that
is
was a
an
good one.
insanely good film.
It was a great double feature. That was so fun.
And Charlie Varick was later remade as No Country for Old Men. Very, very similar story, but with a much more satisfying ending. Although I like No Country for Old Men, but the ending of Charlie Varick is phenomenal. Annie Hall, he was Woody Allen's like best friend that goes to all the parties with him, and I guess he had a recurring role on Love Boat. But that's like the extent of his major roles that he had. What is the whole point of the wing for special diseases? I didn't like. Was that all part of the trick?
It seemed like a setup.
Yeah, I think
Seymour Berger keeps trying to pitch Max Herschel a hospital in the middle of the city.
I think he's trying to play up his declining health and mental state.
Yeah.
In my opinion. I feel like that he wants to build this hospital, so it's like he's looking. Max thinks that he wants a meeting to discuss business.
Right.
But it's like he's like, no, I want to give something back to the community. I want to build a hospital, and I want you to invest in my dream of having this hospital. And Max is just convinced that he's lost it.
But he wants to name it after Max.
Right.
I guess in a way to like convince him to give him more money for it.
Right. But also the fact that it's like for rare and exotic diseases.
Yeah. A wing for special diseases.
Special diseases.
My business with you is a wing for special diseases.
But I think all of that is playing into the big twist, which we'll just describe it. Max goes down to the studio to basically to
fire Mike.
Yeah, and not to fire him because he doesn't want to fire him yet because that's part of the setup
because he has a
too.
Contract for 18 more months or something.
But he's just going to discuss the plan for the dismantling of the studio, and that's when they reveal that he sold all the negatives. And so that's when he gets enraged and fires him. And that causes a clause in his contract to be triggered where he's owed all the money that he would be paid.
Yeah, they make it clear that it's a setup when, after he gets fired, he stands up and walks to the phone at the other side of the room and says, "Did you get all that? You heard him fire me? Okay, we're good." And then Max goes over to the phone and fires the woman on the other end of the phone.
Yeah.
But from that point on, he realizes, okay, I see what you did. You sold all of our prints to Cosmos for a job at Cosmos so that you get like this insane bonus over there because you knew I was going to dismantle the studio.
Right.
See, but all of this, I mean, it's so funny that we've spent so long describing this entire random, like, this was like a B story to the whole thing because, like, none of that part involves the Bones character, like, at all.
Well, it will.
Except that she wants to run the studio and he's not letting her run the studio. Right. But now it's worth less than nothing because he doesn't have the prints anymore.
Right.
So now it's like, well, what am I going to do with it? Just throw it away or give it to her because she can't even run it into the ground. It's literally just an empty studio with no prints.
But she does get involved with Tony Roberts at Cosmos.
Right.
Because she wants to option this book, which at first I thought was written by RoboCop, but because like she's reading it in his house, and I thought that
oh, that's not his book.
No,
I thought it was his too.
No, I don't think so. So okay, so the whole thing is like she's trying to get this playwright for her television show.
Yes.
Right. So she takes him out to dinner, tries to like woo him to be on her television show.
But he's like famously anti-camera, doesn't want to be.
Right. So he doesn't want to do any of this. But for some random reason, after just meeting her once, he takes her up to a cabin, like in the middle of, I don't know, where are they? Vermont? I don't know.
Something like that.
Yeah. Like I think because he makes a big deal about who goes to Vermont.
Yeah.
And he also is like completely off the grid, like zero emissions. Like there's no electricity, there's barely hot water. And
he's Ed Begley Jr. before Ed Begley Jr.
Right.
Well,
and he's like literally telling her, we
weird.
eat the garbage.
Right. I think it's weird to invite her in the first place. Like this TV producer who you're not interested in doing her show. You're just like, come to my Vermont cabin for a few days.
Well, she invited him to her house first, and they were very flirty there.
Yeah, I guess. It just seems like a weird thing to do. And then you bring this television producer up to your cabin. But then at the end of that scene, he sort of makes it clear that the only reason that he's taking her out there is to stick it to Max Herschel.
Right.
Right.
But what she thinks they're doing is having a discussion about potentially adapting a play that he wrote.
Oh no, I think it's still to. Well, yeah, because he wrote a play.
He wrote a play from the perspective of a terrorist.
Correct. And they want to try to make that into a movie, but and Tony Roberts is interested in it, but also on the side, she's interested in adapting this book on her own
that she randomly found in his cabin.
Yeah, that she randomly found some novella that she's trying to buy the rights for by selling all her jewelry that Max gave her.
Right.
Well, because he froze all the rest of her assets when
she started seeing this playwright.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when she married him.
Yeah.
She just
married
ran
him on a whim after
one weekend in Vermont, and they go and get married.
So she's suddenly getting offers from Mike Berger at Cosmos now to make a film of this story that she likes.
Mm-hmm.
Are we sure that it's not written by Peter Weller? I thought it was supposed to be his story.
Well, but then why would she have such a hard time getting the rights?
Yeah, no, it wasn't his book.
Yeah, because she's like negotiating with an agent about the rights, trying to undercut it. But I think a great scene is when Max Herschel and Max Herschel and the playwright meet for the first time, and they're discussing his play at this party.
Right. They go off into the front yard and kind of on their own.
Yeah.
In the garden.
And he is totally, the playwright Peter Weller is totally captivated by Max Herschel's like charisma.
Yeah.
And he's trying
like,
to.
it's very flattering. Like he knows the play well. He's studied it
But she's trying to convince him that no, he's setting you up to fail. He's entrapping you, and you don't see it. And he takes that offensive, like that he would fall for such a ploy.
Yeah, basically, Max thinks that the only reason that Bones is interested in this guy is because he doesn't care about cameras, and that he's the complete polar opposite of Max. And so Max is trying to show her right away, no, we're the exact same person. We both just want to be famous and have a lot of money. And so I'm going to make him feel like he's famous and is about to have a lot of money. And you're going to see him transform into me. And then you're going to leave this guy because he's worthless. And he takes the bait.
It's a lot of work to get your mistress back.
Yeah.
That's true. But it's...
But it's his favorite mistress.
Yeah.
It's his favorite mistress and practically his wife. Because we haven't mentioned her yet, but his wife for this entire film is completely out of her mind in like a sanitarium in Wisconsin.
Yeah, because this man is a psychopath who is
no, they're both crazy people.
No, yeah, he destroyed her mind.
Yes. Yeah, no, I don't doubt that was his doing.
Psychological damage that he did to her.
But it's
her
not
fault
like
she's in
he
it.
doesn't see her ever. Like she spends the year flirting with her doctor at this sanitarium in Wisconsin. And there's another line we get from him early in the movie when he calls her at the sanitarium and says, "Oh, my daughter is engaged or getting married or it's her birthday. What is the celebration for?"
Well, the daughter is already married because she has a kid.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a birthday.
But
it's something for his daughter who he calls baby.
Yeah.
And he says, "Oh, you're going to come out for this event at the house." And she just loses it and goes crazy. And the doctor picks up the phone and says, "No, she's not mentally prepared for this visit. She can't come out to the house." And then he says, "Look, here's what you're going to do. You're going to bring her out to the house like I told you to." And, she said you're making meringues today at the sanitarium?
Doctor, if she doesn't up the meringues, freeze them and send them with her. I want everything I'm paying for.
Because he's just the worst person in the world. He can't even let 2 garbage meringues go to waste.
Like, I bring the macaroni art. We're going to hang that in the hallway.
Yeah, we're going to eat all the macaroni.
Well, and it's weird, too, when he says, "Oh, you're making meringues?" He says, like, what, strawberry or lemon? I was like, what? Strawberry meringue? Is that a thing?
Well, it depends on what kind of meringue you're talking about, like a Swiss meringue or a French meringue. Like,
we got a meringue specialist here.
I'm not a meringue specialist. I'm just saying, like, I think they were talking about making, like, the individual, like, the crunchy kind that you bake.
Sure.
Yeah, as opposed to a lemon meringue pie, which is the soft kind.
See, then I have no idea what we're talking about then.
But yeah, so he does bring the meringues when the event ends up happening. But at this party, he's there with his wife, who is just losing it because he's like demanding everything of her and sent her doctor away immediately because he felt jealous and threatened by the doctor, even though he doesn't pay this woman any attention. And Bones comes to the party and she brings the writer.
Because his mistress, Bones, and his daughter are like really good friends.
Yeah,
apparently.
they're actually like best friends. But since they're kind of broken up now, like Max is trying to pretend like, "Oh, well, I'm totally fine with it. You do what you got to do, and I'm just going to move on to the next mistress in line, this Kathy character, who at the very beginning of the film we see a new secretary starting. Her name is Kathy, and she's like trying to pick things up very quickly, but he kind of moves on to her and is like, "All right, I'm going to be with this Kathy person now." And his daughter is not cool with that. His daughter is like, "Oh, you should get back together with Bones." Like, she just wants them to be together because Bones is her friend and she wants her friend to screw her dad for some reason. And so that's awkward.
Yeah, and then Bones decides to do like this, so everybody that works for Max like has to sign these like, NDA type things that they're not going to talk about anything that happens in the company. Mm-hmm. And then she decides, to make a bunch of money to like move on with this, book that she wants to produce into a movie. She's going to do some sort of like expose thing on the
she's
news.
just going to talk about him on television and get a bunch of money for it. But now, meanwhile, in the background, what she doesn't know is that there's this really famous vase
Oh, yeah.
that Max has in his office that's worth a lot to him and a lot to Seymour Berger. And she wants to make this movie, and Cosmos doesn't want to make a movie of the story that she's talking about. And I was almost certain after 2 viewings that the story that they're talking about is the one from the terrorists' perspective, that Cosmos is like, that sounds radioactive to us, we're not going to do this. But Max gave Seymour the vase
Right.
in secret in exchange for him greenlighting this project for her.
Which is greenlighting the play that RoboCop wrote.
Okay.
Yeah, the vase was
for the play? Okay.
For the play. It wasn't for her film.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
And because he literally just wanted her to be happy, is supposed to be the point of that story, is that he gives up this thing that supposedly means a lot to him, even though it's just a dumb object. And he gives it to his rival to make his mistress happy, even after she has left him. Mm-hmm. And while they're at a party, a Cosmos party, and she's trying to talk up a new screenwriter to work on her project, she wanders around the house and finds the vase in Seymour Berger's office, and then they have a conversation.
Yeah.
And he explains, oh yeah, he gave it to me to greenlight your movie, and my wife died, so now she's in it.
Yeah.
And another weird, couldn't you just give her the vase and that'd be the end of that point? Why did the wife have to die and be put in the vase? And then they had to make a big deal about the fact that she was cremated and they're Jewish and that's not something that we do. And
I honestly think the only reason that they mention her being cremated and being put in the vase is to show that this is a permanent transaction. That there's no way that Max is getting this vase back. It's not like if he cancels the project, he's going to have to give the vase back to him, because it's no, my wife's ashes are in there, so you can't come to my house and take it. There's literally no way I would ever part with this now. But and you probably don't even want it now.
Well, but the deal is, when Seymour dies, he does get the vase back.
Right. And he's presumably just dumps the
what do we do with the wife then?
But
also going out a limb that he's going to live longer than Seymour Berger.
Right. There's a really kind of awkward scene when at the Cosmos party.
Yeah.
When they're kind of walking around, and she Bones is led into a room to watch a film so the men can talk. And so she's put in with all the wives and girlfriends into a room to watch a screening, and while they all kind of go off, and Bones is just kind of like, what the hell am I doing here? Because this is her deal, all part of her deal, but she's been pushed aside
so it can happen around her.
Yeah. And that's when she goes looking around and meets Seymour. But I just that moment just really stuck out to me, where she's just kind of put in this room full of women who don't care that they're being put in the room, but she does. Yeah.
Which is her defining characteristic, is that she's much more like Max than almost anyone else in the story, and that she's like, no, I'm going to have my way, I'm going to figure out how to get things done, and I'm going to do it without anybody's help if I have to. But the screenwriter that she talks to at the Cosmos party is the Michael Gross character, Lothar. And he just tells her, no, sorry, it sounds like you guys aren't willing to pay what I cost. At which point I think Peter Weller is basically saying he'll step up and write the thing. But Michael Gross, obviously, people know from his television work. I know him from Tremors.
Yeah, I was going to say, his television work of Tremors, Back to Perfection?
Yeah. Well, the Back to Perfection is the third movie.
Oh, what was the TV series?
I think it was just called Tremors. I think it was just called Tremors. And then that was the same name of when Kevin Bacon shot that pilot. I think it was just called Tremors.
Oh, yeah?
Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I heard about it. That's what I'm saying.
It didn't get greenlit, which is crazy that they would make a Tremors pilot for another television series with Kevin Bacon in the lead role, and it didn't get picked up. Yeah. But I would love to see that pilot. We could probably find it at work. And obviously, people know him from Family Ties. But yeah, so then basically she goes on television, gives that interview describing the NDAs and what he does to people, and then he has a heart attack.
Yeah, or
an episode.
Or something.
Yeah, some kind of a heart problem, which he describes as a heart attack to his medical team.
Right, even though 2 doctors are like, you're fine, you're good.
So they take him to a hospital, and he demands a pacemaker. And he's telling them specifically what brand of pacemaker he wants.
Yeah, what battery.
Yeah.
He's like, don't give me that other battery from.
Yeah, don't give me that Medtronics battery. I'm gonna know the difference. And while he's in the hospital, Bones has found out about it and calls Myrna Loy to be like, oh my God, what happened? I didn't think I did this to him. And she's like, this isn't your fault. He's really strong. And the doctor said he's actually fine. He's just, this is basically an elective surgery.
They couldn't kill him with a meat axe.
And then she hangs up and turns around, and this really weirdly romantic music plays while she sits down at the counter with a big plate of brownies.
Yeah.
I think that
She keeps making brownies over the course of this movie.
and I think that was alluding to the fact that she's pregnant.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's why she's eating a bunch of plates of brownies.
But the first time she goes to make brownies is in the middle of the night at Peter Weller's house.
Right.
Well, I think it's a little unclear as to how much time is passing throughout this movie.
Yeah.
Like, I think that it's like, they make it seem like she gets married real quick and like all this stuff is happening
I'm
really
still
fast.
not clear whose baby it is. And
I
I've
don't
seen it a couple
know.
times.
I don't think it's clear.
Well, it has to be. Oh no, because she does have sex with him after the first abortion.
Yeah.
After the
Immediately
first
after.
abortion.
Like the day after.
Yeah. Because she calls the abortion clinic again, but she doesn't say anything. She hangs up.
Yeah.
And she says at the end that she's going to keep this baby.
Right.
But
and
like
he
you
asks,
said-
what are you going to name it? And she says Herschel.
Yeah.
Implying.
Well, we're skipping a part here.
Well,
which is she goes back to this romantic interlude with her brownies, and then the phone rings again, and she answers it, and it's Baby, Max's daughter, saying, "Oh my God, you got to come quick. You got to say your goodbyes," like trying to trick her into thinking that he's dying, and also to get her to the hospital. And so she goes to the hospital to see him because she thinks that she killed him with this interview. And it turns out he's totally fine. And she, on her way into the hospital, she walks past Kathy, passed out on the chairs in the
who
in
got
the lobby.
dragged out of his room,
Yeah.
screaming that she loves him and
And
she
she's
doesn't
like-
want him to die.
Yeah, he does like a gesture to Myrna Loy of
Like,
a
get her outta
sweeping
here.
away.
She's completely infatuated with him already.
Oh, also, Max's wife died.
Right.
We
Yeah.
glossed over that. She also
she?
died.
Yeah, she choked on something.
Beef
Oh, that's
Wellington.
right. While he
Beef
sat there,
Wellington.
and he said that he sat there and watched. He was like, I was just sitting there. There was nothing I could do. And it's like, it makes it sound really awkward that you just like,
but
I
Baby
fed her
does
a beef
say-
Wellington and she died after I fired her doctor.
But Baby does say like he was really like upset
No,
about
and
it.
I believe that of the character. The point is supposed to be that like he didn't murder this person, but she died, and now he's free to marry his mistress. And
Glad we cleared that up.
Yeah.
Cleared the path there.
just in case anyone was worried this was a bad person.
Right, we definitely just threw some beef Wellington in there to kill the wife, and
Yeah.
then now we're good. We can marry
Yeah,
the
we
mistress.
kill a lot of wives in this movie.
Yeah.
Off screen for almost no reason. And then so she gets to the hospital, and they have like this really long shot, like
Yeah,
a
it's
slow
great.
zoom conversation between the two of them, which they, unless there's cue cards right off screen, they have these lines memorized for a solid 4 minutes. And it's just the two of them arguing, like love-hate, arguing with each other about what they've done over the past couple months. And she says she's going to make the movie, he's going to give her the studio, and he's basically
Negotiating.
Yeah,
negotiating their prenuptial agreement.
but it's hardly negotiating because he's kind of giving her into every demand that she makes over the course of it.
Not really. I mean, so she's like, "What are you going to do with Kathy?" And
Well, he says he's going to keep
he's
her.
like, "I'm gonna
That
keep
girl
her."
loves me.
That she loves me. It's so creepy. Like that line is so creepy to me. Like it honestly sounds like Trump in the Access Hollywood tape. Like the way he talks about Kathy.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something, sweetheart. That little girl, she loves me. I mean, she's in love with me. She's a very special little girl, bright and nice and good, and I adore her. I could wind up married to Kathy.
She's a wonderful girl.
Like that's just so creepy.
Well, Trump is loosely based on this character. And
a millionaire with a wife that just
that choked to death on a beef Wellington. A lot of people don't know that about Ivana?
which wife?
I forget which one did that. Anyway, and then over the course of this argument, he reads the title of the film, "Just Tell Me What You Want," for I think the third time out loud in the film that the title is spoken. It's also spoken once in MacGruber. Just tell me what you want. And once in a Spice Girls song.
Slightly different context.
We kind of skipped over one aspect of from the beginning of the movie where it opens up with the fight scene.
Right.
Because the opening narration is her kind of walking out of a store as Max is walking in, and it freeze frames on her like
beating him over the head with a purse.
Yeah. But the actual fight goes on and causes all kinds of severe collateral property damage.
He's like knocking stuff out of people's hands, running through the store, crashing into things.
Yeah, she throws like a thing at a whole display of like perfumes that shatter.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't know if you watched the trailer for this movie, but it's entirely that scene. And so like all this lengthy like plot that they have in here and all these B stories and all this stuff that's happening, none of that's in the trailer. The only thing that's in the trailer is her beating the crap out of him. Yeah. And so it just makes her look like, oh, it's a movie about a crazy mistress. Like it's not even clear that, first of all, like he's
the bad guy.
A psychopath that's doing psychological damage to these women. And, you know, on top of that she like has totally legitimate reasons for being furious with him. And it's just, and it makes you think that it's just like some silly rom-com that, you know, that's like...
She chases him out into the street, and he's like trying to get into his limo, but the doors are locked, so he has to go around it to get on the other side.
And they use the line in the trailer. They use the line, just tell me what you want, from one of the times that he says it in the movie. And then it just cuts to her kneeing him in the balls. Like, that's what you want. Just to knee you in the balls.
But that's about it for the story of the film. I don't think that it ages well in the Me Too sense.
No, not at all. I mean, it was like, so the first time I watched this movie, I was just like...
I think you were angrier the first time.
I was really livid. Like, I watched this movie, I'm just like, this is appalling. I can't, this is just terrible. And then, you know, I calmed down a little bit, and people told me, like you guys told me, it's like, well, put it in the context of the era in which it was written.
Yeah.
And that makes it only slightly better. And then I look up and I'm like, oh, J. Presson Allen, like, you know,
female writer and screenwriter.
Well, no, I'm like, who is this guy? Oh, it's a woman. How did a woman write this movie?
Yeah.
And, you know, and
it's not even a letter. It's the name J. Presson.
Well, it's not even her real name.
Yeah.
It's like she changed it to
She
J.
probably literally changed it so that she could get work in Hollywood.
Yeah, probably. Though, you know, it was said, I read that she said she never felt discriminated against in Hollywood.
Right.
You know.
That's what you say to stay on the good graces of the people that are
discriminated against you.
Yeah, exactly. The people who get to go the highest in the hierarchy are the ones who pretend like there's no problems anywhere. Everything's great. At least at the time. Why don't we do a quick round the table and say, up or down, is this movie worth watching? And I'll start if you guys want. I'm gonna say nah. If you're looking to watch everything that matters from the 1980s, you can skip this one.
Yeah, it's a definite skip.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to also give this the old pass.
All right. So that's three no-goes on this one. And if you want to check our Letterboxd account at letterboxd.com/vintagevideopod, you can find our rankings for the year. And each of us is going to put this in the number one slot.
It won't stay there long.
No. But we'll keep updating this as we go. But unfortunately, because this is the only movie so far from the 1980s, it will be the highest rated. But as a plus, it will also be the lowest rated. Why don't we get into some trivia here, loosely relevant to the film. The first question, I guess just raise your hands. Who played Dick and Dora, parodies of Nick and Nora, in Robert Moore's Murder by Death?
You should probably call it
Richard.
Only person who has his hand up.
Richard has raised his hand. That would be David Niven and Maggie Smith.
That is correct.
Right.
What is the original title of the film Tremors? Hint, they had to change it because of Saturday Night Live.
The Blues Brothers.
I asked this question to someone at work to test today, and he was like, Coneheads? Like, that's not a terrible answer. It's not correct.
Oh, is it Land Shark?
Land Sharks was the original title
really?
of Tremors. Yeah. But
funny.
that was like right when that sketch became really popular, and they were like, oh, okay, well, we can't do this anymore.
I think Tremors is a much better title anyways.
Yeah, I agree. What recent real commercial did Peter Weller recently reprise the role of RoboCop for?
Oh. I know this one too.
In a commercial?
Yeah.
This was like
Gotta
a
be
month
something
ago.
stupid, like a Doritos commercial.
No, it's better.
It's better.
Richard.
It's Peter Weller as RoboCop as Colonel Sanders.
Oh!
It is actually him.
That's true. We're doing the rotation where everyone gets a shot at being Colonel Sanders.
That's
here.
definitely the best one so far. And they've done a really good job with that KFC campaign, but that was the best one.
I'll have to watch that.
What is the 3-letter code that Keenan Wynn's Colonel Batguano chose as the combination to deactivate the Doomsday device in Doctor Strangelove?
A 3-letter code?
Yeah, it's 3 letters that turn off all the nukes and turn the planes around so they don't set off the Doomsday device.
OFF?
No.
ABC.
No. Nobody knows this one. Well, if after he kills himself in the movie, they have to go through his own personal notes to try and figure it out, and they find all these notes about purity of essence because he's obsessed with like fluoride, and so the letters are P or OPE, but it's just a rearranging of the letters POE, purity of essence, or peace on earth. So those are the letters that he chose, but he put them in the order OPE. That was the recall code to get the planes to turn around and not nuke Russia.
I like my answer better.
Yeah.
OFF.
I gotta say, that's a pretty obscure bit of trivia, but I love it.
Well, I remember it. That was one I didn't have to look up or anything. It's also makes an appearance in Raising Arizona. It's like scrawled on the back of the bathroom door when they bust in to like clean themselves off after they climbed out of the hole in the ground. And then the last question in this batch is, what does love mean in Love Story?
I haven't seen Love Story.
I also have not seen Love Story.
Very popular phrase. Love means...
never having to say you're sorry.
Correct.
Oh, very nice.
There you go.
I just know that because I never apologize for anything I do to you.
For me, love means always having to say you're sorry.
That is the two sides of our relationship.
I think that's everything for this movie. If you have any thoughts you'd like to share with us, we are Vintage Video Pod on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Letterboxd, where, as I said before, you can also find each of our full movie rankings for the year. It's also linked to on our website, vintagevideopodcast.com. Please consider rating us on iTunes to help people find the show. And if you find the time, please leave us a review, and we will personally thank you at the end of an upcoming episode. If you're feeling especially generous, you can support the show through Patreon at patreon.com/vintagevideopodcast. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you'll join us next time when we'll be discussing Windows, which Wikipedia calls a 1980 erotic thriller film directed by Gordon Willis and starring Talia Shire, Joseph Cortez, and Elizabeth Ashley. We leave you now with the trailer for Windows.
Someone broke in.
He's never going to catch who did it.
Can't live here anymore. I can't. You don't have to say anything you don't want to say. I can't.
I want you to stay home. And don't let anyone in.
What is it? Hello?